Hi, I am Tuomas Pitkänen. I'm going to talk about using software robots in creative industry like composing music. First, let's take a brief overview of the presentation. I'll introduce myself and discuss a little bit about the premise robot creates music. It's good to clear out some common used terms in composing music with computers. Then I'm going to take a look how robot creates music files and imports them to audio sequencer. Also, I'll talk about other helper scripts for independent artists, like using Spotify API, searching for suitable playlists for pitching music, and batch exporting music files to different delivery platforms. In the end, I will also talk about a little bit how could I take this even further and investigate other possibilities like how machine learning could be used analyzing music information. I live in Helsinki, Finland. I work as a software robot developer, and in the evenings I compose production music. So where on earth did I have this idea about software robots? Well, in production music there are some points that have repetitive tasks, like exporting music stems, meaning separate tracks mixed like drums, guitars separately, and what's included in particular song. Also, need of making different length edits and versions can add up working time. Main goal is to make more efficient production workflow, and of course, testing music creation with help of coding is extremely fun and rewarding experience. Before we go further, it's good to explain some terms used in this presentation. First, DAW stands for Digital Audio Workstation. In my example, we are using Cubase Pro. It's developed by a company called Steinberg. It's mainly used in professional music industry. Midi stands for Musical Instrument Digital Interface, and it's a rather old tech from 80s. Shortly put, with Midi, we can send messages from keyboard to sequencer and vice versa to play notes, and also we can create Midi files that can be imported to audio sequencer. VST instrument stands for Virtual Studio Technology instrument, and in sequencer there are these VST instruments which can play various type of sounds. For example, they can split in two. The first, synthesizers creating own sounds, and virtual samplers playing pre-recorded sound files like drums, piano, guitar, and stuff like that. What exactly is production music? Basically, it's music that can be listened to customers for use in film, television, and other media. Usually it's work for hire basis. Stems usually means certain parts of the tracks mixed together like guitars, synthesizers, drums, and so on. What does it take creating production music? Usually production music follows certain guidelines. For example, depending on the target, tracks doesn't have complex structure or melodies or rare key signatures. Usually making an album around 10 tracks or more are related to certain theme. For example, we made this album for Red Bull Media House that had slow motion word as an initial idea. So, for us, slow motion meant a lot of reverb and delay in guitars and very airy synth sounds. Most of the time, it's important to remember that music is being created to support visuals of the project, so you might not find mind-blowing guitar solos or very complex melody structures. Of course, there are also, every time there's exceptions, but as a rule of thumb, more simpler than better. Here is overall look of the production music workflow. First, it starts getting a deal with publishing company, or another route would be submitting to many non-exclusive stock audio libraries. Nowadays, there are a lot of them and market is pretty saturated with the content. Usually, after getting a deal, there are briefings about what's the track's or album purpose and what is the style and feel the music supervisors are after. Then, after briefings, demoing process starts. A lot of tracks are being created and sent to music supervisor to be listened to. At some point, all the agreed tracks are written and accepted, and post-process phase starts. So, music tracks get mastered, meaning that all the levels, equalization, and small details are checked that those are consistent between all the tracks. And stems are exported and several edits are being made. For example, most common edits are 5-second stinger and 30-second edit for commercials. Let me introduce you a Roboducer. I started first version few years ago. It used key shortcuts in sequencer and was a little bit slow. It was my entrance to the world of software robots. So it takes pre-made MIDI clips and inserts them to audio sequence and then exports as an MP3 file. Current version uses Midi util library for Python. It is a very fast way to generate MIDI files by code. Python script is used in Robofile, so robot can call the function, create the MIDI file, and import to sequencer. Currently, it supports only simple major and minor chords that are most common but will be extended along the way. First, you set parameters like style, amount of instruments, and so on. After generating MIDI demos, Robofile will import MIDI files to sequencer and create MP3 previews. Now we run this Python script once to generate MIDI file for demoing purpose. It creates simple track with 3 parts: intro, verse, and chorus. Melody generator takes account of underlying chord structure, and everything is created in key of C minor and major, and that can be transformed to suitable key signature in sequencer. And at this point, MIDI file sounds like this. After generating MIDI file, we launch Robofile to import MIDI file to Cubase to use in music template. This time it is ambient template. Robofile uses RoboCorp CLI and RPA framework libraries such as desktop Windows to automate Cubase. Imported MIDI track can be used as a starting point for a new song, but this time Robot just exports MP3 demo using virtual instruments. Now we play MP3 version of the MIDI track we created earlier. In addition, Roboducer can also help independent artists to getting music heard, and also be used like, for example, searching Spotify with keywords to find suitable playlists to pitch music for, and extract contact information if there is anything in description of the playlists. For example, this robot exports them to Excel files, so you can easily go through them after that. Also, I have used it searching YouTube channels similar way through YouTube API, like searching for the channel descriptions and checking out if there is any contact information. And of course, uploading catalog of tracks to music portals can be also automated. For example, the most commonly used platform is DistroKid to get your tracks to Spotify or iTunes and all the streaming platforms. And it can use Excel files and loop through them and upload desired tracks. Finally, I'm investigating ideas to take this even further, like extending Roboducer for music information extraction, like getting separate instruments, vocal style of the tracks, isolating and sampling melodies of music tracks as a training material for machine learning, and maybe generating more appealing melodies. Who knows? We can make deep analysis with said techniques about reference tracks, like getting instruments, getting structure, key, melodies, and so on. For example, I checked out about Python library called librosa, and it sounds promising. One thing what could improve is creating own samples for the Roboducer, so everybody could create demos directly with the Roboducer and try out with the full sounds of guitars, bass, and drums, for example. Thank you for your time. I hope you enjoyed this talk, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Hey Thomas, welcome to RoboCon.
Hello, nice to meet you again.
Same. Awesome stuff, Thomas. So let's get to some of the questions. First one is, first of all, everyone's saying this is a really cool session, so thank you for it. I think it really shows the power of robot framework, and I love putting it with music where a lot of people probably didn't even think about was even possible, so thank you for that. Jenna wants to know, was the chord progression specified in the robot file? So creating the progression is not automated, or is it like, does it just automatically create progressions and melodies instantly on its own?
Yeah. First, in this version, there is two choices: totally random chords, which sounds very silly if you produce like 100 songs and those are totally random. Right. So it doesn't work in concept of playing some cool music. And then there's determined mode that it takes account if it's randomized the first chord, it takes account what was the previous chord to use like some suitable for that one. So it doesn't end up like something very silly and I was wasting time for this. But most of all, I was thinking that fine-tuning it to be more like a couple of different kind of genres. So using most popular chord progressions for those.
Great. So Ed wants to know, which desktop application automation libraries are you using? White library, question mark, or others?
RPA frameworks, desktop Windows library.
So Thomas, I know you talked... Go ahead.
Sorry, I have previously used the white library, but since it's being like going deprecated or something like that, so switching to something else to get more, so it doesn't phase out.
So you applied it specifically to Midi, but can you use it for if someone did podcasts, or is there any type of MP3 file you can maybe submit it automatically to all the lists that you talk about, music lists, but maybe if it was a podcast or video, you could do that as well?
Sorry, the first part was to create something music for the podcast.
Yep.
Yeah, of course. I'm experimenting about having some pre-recorded sounds, so there won't be some license problems or anything like that. So you could create some fun, entertaining audio logo or jingle to the start of podcast, but a couple of clicks.
Very cool. Tristana wants to know, can it also be used to play music with a .wave extension, and how? If so, how?
Yeah, can you repeat the question now?
Sure. Someone wants to know, can it be used to play music with a wave extension, .wave, or does it have to be an MP3 or MP4?
Yeah, anything. Currently, the MP3 was just for the quick demos, so I produced them, and those doesn't take so much space. So if I leave it like overnight generating stuff, so it can take space for the high quality WAV files.
All right. So Valtteri wants to know, have you experimented with other DAWs other than Cubase? Especially interested in Odor, since I have used that a lot. How about searching target playlists? Would this be possible also? Let's say Tidal, Bandcamp, or Deezer.
Not checked out those yet. Currently, I have just tested out Spotify API and YouTube API. Next in list was Apple Music, and of course Deezer and all those other platforms are in, for example, in DistroKid distribution. So have to check those out also.
Someone asked also about a Garageband. I guess, would it work with any DAW eventually? Because it's just an RPA manipulating it?
That's the main purpose. The more the sequencer supports for the hotkeys and customizing hotkeys, the better. So I haven't not used Garageband much or any other DAWs, but of course it's just a matter of experimentation.
Cool. All right. Next question was, have you tried generating jack-based sound effects using Guitarix, Amplitude, or Rack-a-Rack?
Meaning that I just generate them like inputting something audio, and then yes, I have Guitaric and a couple of other guitar VSTs and virtual that transfer the sound. So that's pretty good idea to input a lot of like different kind of sound effects with robot, like programmatically generate stuff.
Nice. And question from Manny. As it supports Midi, is it independent of the music producing software you're using, right?
Yeah. So you can basically create the Midi, and just in my video I played first as general Midi that that is playable everywhere. So when I'm releasing the GitHub project of this, everybody could just try out it without any sequencer or stuff like that. And if I get it working with sample own recorded samples, then you can create like those podcast sounds and stuff like that sound better than general MIDI stuff.
Nice. Another question. How were the Cubase samples chosen? Did you have to pick them, or were they chosen by the robot according to what sound it liked in the MIDI?
Yeah, currently there is a couple of templates that in config file I configure that I want to load up the ambient template. So first it loads up the template that has some instruments preloaded, and the next phase is that robot could control and change them. Like there is like drum samples, and it can choose some of them by random, and of course those synth sounds and also other sounds, so it doesn't get repetitive. If you have like 100 version of one template, it gets boring and think about what's the point all this. But that's good point to randomize the instruments the robot uses.
And time for one last question. It's from Raul. Wants to know, can we search for beats per minute in this list of songs?
Yeah, first version I did test with live browser. I need to do some fine tuning because the BPM wasn't the approximate, like the error margin was like 1 to 3 BPM. I need to check out how is it the sample rate issue or something like that. But I did browse Spotify, downloaded those demo 30-second previews, and then calculated the BPM from them and put it on the list I create. So yes, it's possible.
Awesome. So those are all the questions we have. Anything on your roadmap you definitely see happening in the future pretty soon that people should know about before we leave?
Yeah, that was what I was talking about, to analyze deeper those songs that are on like Spotify or Apple Music or stuff like that. So getting the feel like what are the guitar sounds, synth sounds, and trying to mimic them. So to get the signature sounds of different kind of bands and trying to recreate them. So that would be very cool and inspiring stuff.
Awesome. Well, thinking of inspiring, this is inspiring, and I think it helped get people into automation. If you use music as a gateway and do something practical like this, I think it'd get a lot more people involved. So thank you so much for this demo. Really, really cool and innovative. Thank you, Tuomas. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Talk to you later.
Catch you on the venue.
All right. Awesome.
Cheers.